biblicist Rashi, who oddly enough operated in the city of Troyes in Champagne at the same time as the Templar conspiracy.
Well, isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah, isn't it just? He said Abraham was undoubtedly very highborn. The Moses figure, thanks to the beautiful work of Arnold Osmond, who brought his forensic skills to bear on it, we now know it was Akhenaten. There's certainly no dispute amongst Egyptologists and historians as to whether Moses was a pharaoh or a founder. We all know he was a pharaoh. There is a little bit of argument as to which of two candidates he was. My money's on Osmond's choice, which is Akhenaten. Akhenaten was deposed and was paid to go away, which explains why these supposed slaves, for which there is no record in the voluminous Egyptian documentation, left Egypt laden down with loot.
Yeah.
They were given the land of Canaan, which was Egyptian anyway. They brought with them the principle of hereditary priesthood which had pervaded Egypt. Throughout the Old Testament you will find reverential references to Egyptian knowledge and to the spiritual principles. And we had our shamans, we call them prophets of the Old Testament, which is straight from that tradition. There were initiatory pathways, the Hekaloth and Makoba mysticism of biblical Judaism were derivations from the Egyptian roots and were amalgamated in one form or another with Essene teaching. Jesus was a Jew who grew up in an Essene family of royal descent. He was taught by John the Baptist. He passed on his teaching to his star pupil, John the Divine. This is why you will find that both the Knights Templar and the later Freemasons, the two Saints John, are still of paramount importance. It is stressing the continuity of transmission of the message, and the message, not the messenger.
Yes.
There is a document which was published shortly after crucifixion, the Kerygmata Patrum, which classified the man we know as St. Paul as the spouter of lies and the distorter of the true teachings of Jesus. And it was Paul's teaching that gave us the foundation for the forms of Christianity we have today, some of which have become increasingly bizarre in recent years. If I died tomorrow and found myself at the judgment seat of God, which is something I don't believe in, but let's just say I'm wrong and I found myself there, would it be any use me saying, I'm sorry God I did that, but the Pope told me to do it, or the Archbishop of Canterbury, or my local vicar or pastor? Because God would return and say, well, whatever happened to the wonderful gifts of free will and discernment that I gave you? Didn't you use them? Spirituality pervades all of the major religions and yet transcends every one of them. It's still discernible within those religions, and we have had beautiful mystics from all of them. I mean, the most recent one we can think of is probably Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
But there have been those through the ages: Mechtilde Magdeburg, Hildegard von Bingen, Meister Eckhart. The list is almost endless. And you can take their sayings and look at the spiritual insights of the Native American people long before Christianity began to distort their culture, and you could swap the names under the quotes because they've come to the same truth. There is only one source for truth, there is only one ultimate truth, and it's discernible in all the great traditions. But ultimately spirituality goes beyond religion, and the Mevlana once wrote, there is a faith which transcends all the great religions. That faith is simply the love of God. That's what spirituality is about. The love of God and the love of God's people. And we are all God's people, irrespective of race, age, creed, colour, sex, or whatever.